I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here and say that for most practices this season, Red Bull have been, their practice pace has been quick, yes, but it's never been representative.
It was the same with Mercedes. I mean,
Yeah.
those oaks were like the king of sandbags. I mean, the thing with Ferrari, one has to think like, do they remember how to win? Do they remember how to
No.
how to be in a championship? Because and you must remember, if they did this last year, it feeds into this year's car because last year's budget cap would have been part of the development for this year's car. I said Yuki, and it's so funny.
I think you cursed him. I think you cursed Yuki.
Oh man, shame, man. But that sorry, I just wanted to put that in there that I called that one. But in any case,
I wasn't sure about that Yuki call, honestly. When you said I think Yuki's gonna crash, I was like, really?
At what point does a team say, listen, let's get you out here? Four times this weekend he overcooked into the exact same corner.
Yeah.
At this point, you got to think about it like this. At this point, Russell is privileged, whereas
Lewis is entitled.
I was quite impressed with Stroll. For somebody who gets a lot of stick.
Yeah. So now you can't go, parading the title Mr. Consistency for the first half of the season, and then
exactly.
Are they starting to make the car parts of the Williams out of paper mache? Like, are they that broke?
It's impressive how quickly he closes up on guys in front of him.
Here, I think the donkey of the day is whoever designed the bloody Renault engine.
How's it, guys? Welcome to Break at the Apex. This is the coolest F1 podcast you will find with your hosts, myself, Graham, and Egan. How's it going?
Yeah, good. And yourself?
Good. Well, I guess this is our first episode, so, we probably don't need to do this every time, but at least let's just get the niceties out the way and just tell people who we are. First and foremost, I'm a Ricciardo fan, but I do support Red Bull. It pretty much stems from when I came back to the sport. I supported McLaren as a kid, stopped supporting F1 for quite a while, and then around 2014 when Sebastian and Daniel joined forces in Red Bull, that's when I started watching again. And from there, pretty much history. So yeah, Red Bull and Daniel Ricciardo are pretty much my main. Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there isn't a person alive who hates Daniel Ricciardo, so
I don't think there is anybody that hates Daniel Ricciardo.
No, you gotta love him.
No, I feel, if I'm really honest, I'm pretty sad at the moment, quite depressed. To lose Vettel and Ricciardo in the same year is going to be depressing.
It's a blow. Yeah, it's definitely a blow, especially losing Seb. Oh.
It is what it is.
I'm gonna go cry in the corner.
Yeah, no, man. It's like I watched his video that he posted on Instagram that morning.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to decide which is worse, if it was Federer's farewell speech or if it was Vettel's video. But those two speeches this past few weeks have been crazy for me, man. But it is what it is.
It was terrible. I mean, and that whole thing of for the longest time Vettel didn't involve himself with social media. Pops Sebastian Vettel Instagram account, and I'm like, oh my god, he finally did it. And then half an hour after, it's like, well, I'm retiring.
I'm gone. I'm out. Peace, guys. I'm out. Yeah, no. You know what?
Bait and switch.
Yeah, and the thing is, I didn't see him come up on Insta because I don't live on Instagram. I love Instagram. I go on Instagram, but I don't live on it. It's like we working people, But I went on Instagram and I saw a video of him and I was thinking, I mean, this is quite odd. Like, I've never seen anything of him on Instagram, never before. And then all of a sudden, I was going through it and I'm retiring and I'm like, oh no, okay, this is pretty rough. And then when I looked at other people's Instagrams, it's like they were like all talking about how he's now got Instagram. And I was like, so this guy literally started social media just so that
he could Peace out.
And then I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, and then I thought it was quite vain too, because I mean, he knew that if he went onto social media, he'd get millions of people instantly. I mean, come on, man.
No, I mean, it was millions within the first couple of hours.
It's
Like,
crazy, but yeah, he deserves it
I'm,
though.
I mean, he had millions of followers before he even had anything on the account. The account was blank aside from a
I know.
profile picture, and it
Yeah,
was already millions strong.
I can imagine. Yeah, I didn't see that part, but I can certainly imagine. Anyways, Paul, what is
Yeah.
your what's your background in the sport? Let's let the
Yeah.
people know.
Well, I mean, I followed the sport back when I was a kid, when Michael was still racing. And sort of fell out of it as I got older, and then started following it here and there. And then last year, I started paying a little bit more attention to it, obviously, because, well, we all know how last season went. And then from the start of this season, I've been very much, sit down every qualifying, every race, must follow Formula One.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I I get days where I miss practice and I'm thinking, oh man, I've just missed the biggest part of the season of the whole weekend, because there's so much that you can miss. I mean, there's so much to see in practice. I think, you know, there's a lot of new supporters in the world, and a lot of them love the racing, they love qualifying, but not a lot of people actually appreciate like watching the practices. It's like watching a test cricket game. It's like you it's a slow burner. You're watching practice, but there's no real
Mm,
results, and nobody really appreciates it. But the thing I appreciate about watching like every single weekend, like practices and everything, is like you really get to see everything about the sport, outside of the
yeah,
car, in the car, leading up to the race, leading up to qualifying. I mean, this
it's a
weekend was
lot
a
more
perfect
technical.
example. Yeah, but I mean, this weekend was a perfect example. I mean, you take Max for example, how they struggled in practice, and
Yeah,
then come quali, this Oak was over a second ahead of Leclerc. Obviously, it didn't work out, but the point is that you know what they do in practice leads up to something, and it's
yeah.
nice to see. It's nice to see the bigger picture.
I mean,
Um,
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here and say that for most practices this season, Red Bull have been, their practice pace has been quick, yes, but it's never been representative, I feel, of their qualifying and their race pace, especially. I mean, you can
mm,
go and you can look, practice sessions, their times are in the top fives, but they're never just blisteringly fast
mm.
in the practice, and then qualifying comes around and they pick up the pace a little in Q1, and then Q3 all of a sudden, they're blazingly quick.
Yeah,
The
but
I'm
like if you
thinking
watch
there's a
last year,
little bit of sandbagging going on there, I feel.
well, I was just about to say, if you look at last year or the years before that, it was the same with Mercedes. I mean,
Yeah.
those Oaks were like the king of sandbags. I mean, those Oaks,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even a secret. It wasn't even a secret. Like they would say, like they would like. I mean, they wouldn't
Yeah,
come out
definitely.
and say, okay, we're sandbagging, but like they would say, like, oh, we've got more coming. It's like,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
exactly.
But
But
any
like
case,
I feel that also Ferrari don't really do that. I mean, Leclerc and Sainz, their pace within practice is pretty representative, I feel, of their qualifying pace. Hence why most practice sessions have one of the two of them on the top of the timing sheets.
mm. But yeah, I think the thing with Ferrari, one has to think like, do they remember how to win? Do they remember how to
No.
how to how to be
No.
in a championship? Because
No, I think it's been too long.
yeah, because the fact is right, like I get it, do well in practice, do well in qualifying and so on. But at the end of the day, you got to think about it like this: why did Merck sandbag so much? Why do Red Bull sandbag now so much? There's a certain kind of there's a few cards that you want to play closer to your chest. You want to keep it
Oh,
in,
definitely. You don't want to
until
go
it's time
out
to show.
there and yeah, you don't want to. It's like sitting down to a poker game and just putting your hand down on the table and letting everyone see it. It's not the
Yeah,
way to
yeah,
go.
exactly. Um, but yeah,
It's
it's
just
it's one of those
interesting to
things.
me that difference in pace.
I really hope, I really hope that that Red Bull aren't caught up in this whole cost cap vibe, because honestly, it's
Well, it's a bit of the thing, but from my understanding, it only got to do with last year's budget, not this year's. So I don't really
yes,
see it
but
affecting this season at all,
uh, yeah, I do
especially
understand
so
that.
close to the end.
I do understand that. The issue for me is that it's not about how it can affect the overall championship. It's more about the fact that, you know, there's already so many. Look, man, I'm going to be quite honest with you. Lewis Hamilton supporters and and Max supporters are like a bunch of haters. Like,
Yeah, they're
there's
crazy.
so much. There is
It's
so much
craziness.
hate. It's upsetting, because honestly, like, I love Max. I think he's a very likable character. But Lewis, for example, one doesn't have to like him to respect him. The guy has done a lot in the sport. He's done a lot outside of the sport for the world, and I feel like, people don't have to like him, but at least respect his respect what he's done, respect who he is, and respect what he's been able to achieve in the sport. And I mean, yeah, okay, he's had the best car, but I mean, Max has had the best car at times, and he's done it. Michael Schumacher had the best cars at times, and the sport goes about, if you have the best machinery, you just have to come to the party, and
Yeah, the
to
driver needs to come to the party.
exactly, and Lewis does that quite consistently. So you've got to give him those props. You can't just hate on him. And the point I'm trying to make is just, with that fan base, the moment Red Bull gets found out for something like this, Red Bull will always be known as cheaters, in the world, and everything that they've worked for will be taken away. Like the joy will be sucked out of it. I mean, how will they go on to win this year, and the world actually goes, you know what, fair play, Red Bull, you did well. No, they're going to say, you know what, guys, you cheated. Last year you overdid the budget cap, and you must remember, if they did this last year, it feeds into this year's car, because last year's budget cap would have been part of the development for this year's car.
Yeah, but on the other hand, from what I've heard, the amount they, or at least the rumors that I've heard, and the amount they overspent wasn't that much. In fact, Aston Martin, according to the rumors, overspent more than Red Bull did, and well, look where that got them. So it's a
It's a
very
conversation for another day, mate. Like,
yeah. Oh, how do you go over a budget? How do you go over your budget cap in 2 years
and
in a
get
row for
slower,
this shit box?
and
For
you get
2 years
slower.
in a row.
No, it's mad.
Oh,
It's mad.
madness.
Um, yeah, but anyways, yeah. Anyways, I
I
guess
mean,
I guess
look,
that's
like
that is what it is.
you can say that, oh, Red Bull overspent on their budget, and even if they did, and even if it does come out and they do get penalized for it, at the end of the day, to me, that doesn't really take away from Max's drive this season at all, because, or Perez's for that matter, because they've both proven that the driver is what makes the difference there. I
Mm,
mean, if you look at Max at Spa, for example, like, yes, his car was fast, but he beat his Checo handedly. I mean, he
yeah,
pulled out a 20, within 12 laps, he overtook him, pulled out a 25-second lead, went in for a pit stop, came back out, and he was still ahead of Checo.
yeah.
Like
That is true. Yeah,
that,
that is true.
and other instances of his driving this year, it's, a car is part of it, but if you have a great car and a shitty driver, you're not going to get anywhere.
Well, yeah, that is true.
I
I
mean,
I,
it's
I
two
want,
halves of an
yeah,
equation. You don't, just because you're, like, for example, the Mercedes at the beginning of this year, you got Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, stuck behind an Alpha Tower because the car just wasn't under him. It's two parts of an equation, and then we've seen other drivers in great cars that can't beat their teammate or can't pull it into where it should be. I mean, look at the 2020 season where Max demolished two teammates in the same car. I
yeah.
mean, Pierre
Um,
Gasly, for example, him sitting halfway down the midfield in a car that Max was routinely sticking, on or near the podium.
Which, funny enough, you can also, but in those instances, you can see that they just can't catch that car. It's like Ricardo with McLaren now. You can just see that they're not, because you take Gasly for example. Gasly went back to AlphaTauri and then was getting into better positions than what he did when he had the Red Bull. Like
That's true.
how like
Well, I'm
you're
of the
becoming
opinion that, Gasly, well, I mean, I don't think this is very much of an opinion thing. I think it's pretty a solid opinion to say that Gasly wasn't ready for that move up into Red Bull. Wasn't anywhere near ready for it. In terms of his
yeah.
development as a driver, I mean, and you can see it plainly because when Albon came in, he did better. And it was
He
still the
did.
same car.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I think Perez has done great. In a way, he's sort of fallen off a little bit this year up until today, but um, I really feel like Albon should have gotten another year. I think they should have given a little bit more time. Red Bull are so quick to they're really so quick it's very cutthroat in that business, and they're so quick to change things. But I really feel like Albon should have gotten another go. He had times where he showed he could do it. But it is what it is. Let's uh,
Move
let's get
on to
into the
today's race.
yeah, let's get into the race reviews.
Oh,
Um,
that was an interesting one.
you know what? It was for me an extremely weird race. First of all, besides the weather, I mean, it's Singapore, bro. I don't know where that rain came from, but besides the weather, it was such a weird race because I found myself like it wasn't the most exciting race, but I was excited the whole way through the race. I,
Yeah, I very much had the feeling of like going from between bits of boredom and then just instantly the race changes and it's exciting and then it goes back to being
yeah,
boring for a couple of laps.
and it's so funny because the most of the excitement were like random mechanical DNFs. It's
Yeah,
it's weird, but it's just like because that happens, in Singapore, okay, safety car. Okay, cool. Now they're going to be a restart. Now there's going to be a bit of a jumble in. Yeah,
Singapore, by the
it's
way, the only track with 100% track record of having a safety
us.
car at every race.
Yes, that's great. That I mean, that's when I say great, I mean it's safety cars. They change the game sometimes. Like, safety cars really they make it fun sometimes. Get that restart
Yeah,
going and
bit of a mix up, bunch up the field and see what
hmm.
happens type of thing.
Yeah. Can we just? I just want to touch on. I've got a few things I wrote down here. Things that I just want to touch on from the race specifically. Um, the one thing is just when I asked you guys for your predictions earlier today.
Yeah.
At first I was gonna at first I said for the first episode we're gonna do predictions top five plus A, B, and F,
Yeah.
and I said Yuki, and it's so funny
Oh, I
how
think
that
you cursed him. I think you cursed Yuki.
oh man, shame man, but that sorry, I just wanted to put that in there that I called that one. But in any case,
I wasn't sure about that Yuki call, honestly. When you said I think Yuki's gonna crash, I was like, really? I mean, he's a bit reckless, but he's not a bad driver. And then as he went
no.
sailing into that wall, I was like, "Ah, hmm."
The only reason why I said Yuki is because I was like I was thinking of all the drivers, and I thought, well, Latifi is too obvious. That's a stupid call. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
he's
mean,
one of the talking points
it's
that I've got here. But it's like pulling a name out of the hat, man, and it just seemed to work. Um,
Oh, well, if
but
we're going to touch on
sorry,
Latifi for 2 seconds, he actually has received a 5-place grid penalty for Suzuka.
who's that?
Nicholas Latifi has received a grid penalty
Really?
for next race. Yep, for causing the crash between him and Zhou Guanyu.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting. Well,
yeah.
he's
So,
he's one of I've got 4 points here, just as a race review quickly. 4 points that I just wanted to run through. You can add anything that you think of as well, but I Latifi was one of those points, and I just wanted to talk
ah,
about it. Like I know that he's leaving, but At what point does a team say, listen, let's get you out here, bro. Like let's pull Nick in for the rest of the season. Let's put Nick up against Albon. See how
Well,
Nick
there's no
goes.
point in putting Mick in there at that point. I mean, at that point, you can better pull in your reserve driver or one of
No, I'm
the
talking about De
academy
Vries. I'm talking.
drivers.
No,
Oh,
I was talking.
Nick. Sorry, I thought you said
Yeah.
Mick.
No. I'm talking about De Vries. I'm saying, like at what point do you say, okay, listen, let's just put De
Yeah,
Vries in and give him a go against Albon.
yeah.
I do understand the whole thing with De Vries and AlphaTauri and so on, but
And he is
he's still
technically
here.
the Mercedes reserve driver still.
Exactly, he's still there. So why don't you put him up against Albon and see if he's really? Because let's be honest. I mean, yeah, he beat Latifi in his first race and he got points, but he did get a lot of luck. I mean, the whole field what got. I mean, Latifi wasn't far off from points either in that race. So it's like put Nick up against Albon and let's really see what Nick is about. And I just feel
Yeah,
like
if we look at it, the Nicholas Latifi finished a whole lap down at Monza, whereas Nick de Vries was ninth place. Completely. I believe he wasn't even lapped by the leaders.
okay,
Yeah, the
fair
leaders
enough.
only lapped up to 13th place with Valtteri, but
Yeah,
you got one of your
that's fair.
drivers who's basically being lapped sometimes twice by the leaders of the race almost every race when he's not binning it into the wall. At some point
Yeah,
you got to think like we for the sake of our constructors fight we need to get rid of him.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, there's still points on the table. Between. I mean, you've got the standings there. What's the driver? How far is Williams behind? What's the points difference between Williams and the team?
Williams is not getting higher than 10th this season. I can tell you that much by now.
How many
Uh,
points? How many points are they on?
So they have 6 points in total, 2 of which were
Okay,
scored by Nick de Vries and the rest scored by Albon over the course of the season.
and
The two
who's
teams
the?
ahead of them
Yeah.
are AlphaTauri and Haas, who are level on points at 34 points each.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I suppose
And
there's no reach
Williams
there.
can barely score 2
No,
points a weekend,
no,
so
there's no reach there.
no.
Okay, I suppose if there's no reach, then I guess there's no point in getting him out of the car. But at least for the sake of experimenting with Nick, or even Sargent. I mean, if they're going to bring, oh, they can't because he's just finished. I mean, he's still busy with F2, isn't it? So he
Yeah,
can't.
Logan Sargent's still busy with
Yeah, he's
F2,
still
I
busy.
believe.
But it would be good to see. But anyways, I just wanted to cover that because I don't know. I just feel
Or
like at one
no,
point.
actually, we are wrong because the F2 season, or was it? Yeah, the F2 season's actually over.
Yeah, but I don't think that they can just put him into F1 straight away. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
he placed third in the standings, so in the F2 standings, so he has enough super license points to be honest.
Yeah, I'll give him a go and let him
Yeah,
get
but
a
I
bit of
mean,
experience up until next year.
it was something that I was talking to a colleague about the other day, especially in regards to Williams. It's like, at what point do you, as a team, just shut your doors and say, look, we can't compete? I
Well,
mean,
but the thing is that they have sold. They just kept the name. I was listening to a podcast with Capita, Jost Capita, the new team principal,
yeah.
and he was saying that when he started there, because remember Williams sold, they sold the
Yeah.
company, so it's not Williams anymore.
No, but they've
But
just that
they
team
just
has just gone backwards.
yeah they decided to keep their name
Yeah.
because of the heritage and but it is a new team technically. So what do they do if they sell? They're just going to sell again, and then the new people that come. If I'm honest, I think F1 need to, when it comes to these kinds of things, I think us general fans, we don't maybe understand the whole economical situation behind it. But from a logical standpoint, I'm just thinking, like you've got teams like Andretti and stuff like that waiting to get in.
Yeah.
Why
Exactly.
don't F1 stand up and say, listen, guys, let's relegate the bottom team every year, and then we let a new team come in. provided that they have it, and then they must go out and market to people. F1 must go out and market to newer teams to bring teams in. Then they don't have to buy out Williams, for example. They can just come in, and then Williams must just figure out another. They can go and race in a different thing. They can just go do Le Mans.
I'm still of the opinion, most F1 circuits have room for about 22 to 24 cars, so we have room for another and one more team at least. But my whole thing with Williams is like, we look at 2017, which is the last time they placed midway in the constructors standings. They went from P5 in 2017, dropping to P10 in
and they just haven't,
and they have
been there since.
Ever since then, since 2017, they have consistently been 10th. The only time they haven't been 10th was in those interim years was last year, and that was only because the Haas were essentially running with the previous year's car.
Yeah, that's fair.
So at this point, I don't see a point in them still trying to make this team work, especially when the FI or the Formula One management is out here rejecting teams like Andretti who want to come into the sport. They're rejecting their entry while allowing a team like Williams to continue existing.
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to say. At some point, F1 must
moving chicanes at this point.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like at some point, F1 need to get involved here and say, hey, like, get a team like Andretti in. Williams, sorry guys, you're not making the cut. We need, we as a sport and as an organization, we need the sport to be more competitive. And if Andretti can come in and be more competitive, then the amount of money that Andretti is going to bring into the sport as well.
The amount of technical knowledge that they have. They've been running a decently successful IndyCar team for ages.
Exactly. Anyways, I guess we can do a whole podcast on Williams, but
you could do a whole season of podcasts on Williams.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the TV. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was I feel like we just need to cover this, and I apologize to any Lewis fans. Please don't hate on me for this, but mate, 4 times this weekend he overcooked into the exact same corner.
Yeah.
This is a 7-time world champion. How is he getting? Come on, man. Okay, obviously, it's. The only reason why I want to bring this up is just, you don't expect a guy of his caliber to be making mistakes like that, especially 4 times in one weekend at the same place.
No, let's be real here, though. Like, yes, other drivers were making mistakes, but you saw drivers like Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc making a mistake here or there, and it usually was always in a different place. But you see, Lewis making the same mistake in the same corner, like you said, over and over again. And at some point, you ask, what's happening here?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I just wanted to know, from somebody else's point of view, like, did they see what I saw? Because I just can't understand how a man of his caliber can just continuously make that mistake at the same place. It just doesn't seem to fit well, because I feel like, this is a 7-time world champion, a guy that never really makes mistakes. Same corner, you're making the same mistake. And it's like, I know a lot of people are going to jump the gun here. Lewis is washed, but that's just
not true. If you look at his season results, that's just not true.
That's just how the world goes, man. Like, if you go on Facebook, it's just, you see it everywhere, because George Russell's winning. Oh no, Lewis is washed. Daniel's washed. It's just how it is. But the point is just like, if you look at it, why he struggled a lot with that car in that same corner, and I'm wondering, I was listening to Toto make comments earlier the week about, well, obviously he made his sly comments on Red Bull, which is fairly
downright
normal.
Slanderous.
Yeah, which is fairly normal.
Downright slanderous.
Yeah, it's fairly normal of him. But one thing he did say was, like, he was acknowledging the idea that, last year's budget feeds into this year's car, which will feed into next year's car eventually, and so it goes on until the next regulation set, which is true. But what I was thinking though is that his way of saying that they don't have a plan to take on Red Bull for next year? And the reason I'm saying this, right, just hear me out now. The reason why I'm asking that is because why would he care if he had a plan to get Mercedes back on track for next year? Why would he care if last year's car made this car's better to make next year's car better to make? Why would he care? Like if he had something in the works for next year.
It makes one think, are they sort of still floundering like they were at the beginning of the season? I mean, we've seen a marked improvement on the Mercedes, that car's pace, but yeah, you have to think, there's going to be also slight regulation changes going into next year like there is every year. And you gotta think to yourself, like, what is their plan here? Because you hear both of them, Lewis and Russell constantly cracking on like, oh, we're working hard and we're improving the car. And, well, I don't doubt that they're working hard. To me, it just strikes me as odd that, they say that they're working so hard, but it doesn't seem to be proving any results. I mean, this is a team that won 7 constructors titles in a row. And you've got their drivers coming out here saying we're working on it, we're going to get faster. But they're battling for podiums here.
Yeah, and it's difficult because, in a way, I want them to do well. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, as we said earlier, like it just doesn't seem like Ferrari is ready, they've forgotten how to win. And the problem
is
that
just the people who the last team that they had that won, they've all left the sport by now.
They've all left the sport, yeah.
The team who, like I said, helped Michael dominate the sport and helped Kimi win his title. Though that's not the same team that is, that screwed over Alonso, that screwed over Sebastian, and that are currently screwing over Leclerc, to be honest here. I mean, how many points has Leclerc lost based solely on bad calls from the pit wall?
Yeah, I agree. But that's exactly my point. It's like that team just doesn't seem well oiled. And if you look at the past years, Red Bull and Mercedes have always been two teams that just know how to get it right weekend after weekend. And that's why I want Mercedes to do well. I mean, if you look at last year was probably one of the best seasons of F1 I've ever watched.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. If next year going into it we get Max v Lewis version 2, I will not be upset.
Oh mate, I'll tell you what, I will pay to have that, man. I'll literally pay somebody to have a season like that.
If we go in at the beginning of next year and it's, at Sakhir again, it's Max and Hamilton going like this the whole race, hard racing. Oh, I'll throw a party.
And that's cool. And you know what? It's like, what's funny with Leclerc and Max is that Ferrari never gave Leclerc the chance to give that to us this year, even though they had the car. They didn't give him the chance to give that to us. So
towards the beginning of the season, they had the best car on the grid. I mean, development wise, they've sort of lost that edge, but
that's every year's thing with Ferrari, though.
Exactly.
They always drop off.
Yeah, go back and look at Seb's season. They start off winning races and being strong, and then it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, let's hope that Lewis and Mercedes. The point of what I brought that up with is I just wanted to know more on your thoughts on where Mercedes are. I mean, if Lewis is making the same mistake in the same place, not only coming from a person who shouldn't be making those mistakes, you tend to wonder with Wolf's comments during the week. You tend to wonder, like, do they really still not know what's going on with that car? Because you kind of think it can't be Lewis. Surely it can't be Lewis making that mistake every time into that corner. You kind of think that maybe that corner just didn't favor that car. Maybe there was something at that corner.
Look, I'm not gonna try and start something here, but I've also got to say, especially this season, you've been hearing Lewis complain about the car a lot more than Russell. Now, having said that, maybe it is just because Russell doesn't want to make waves in his first season with the team, but you've also got to think, you hear Lewis almost every single race saying something bad about the car, whereas Russell doesn't seem to have those problems.
He's just getting on with it, but I think it's also, you just need to, I think one needs to understand as well the difference is that, at this point, you got to think about it like this. At this point, Russell is privileged, whereas
Yeah,
whereas
Lewis is
whe-
entitled.
whereas Lewis is entitled. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that Lewis is entitled. I'm not meaning that in a rude way. What I'm saying is that's his team.
Yeah, he built it.
Um, and
Let's be
and
honest
yeah,
here.
that's his team, and Russell is privileged to be there. So I think as a privileged person here, you kind of sit back, you do your job, you do the best you can. Whereas like someone
Yeah.
like Lewis, who's more entitled to winning, or more entitled to being the head of the team, or more entitled to be favored and stuff like that,
Yeah,
you kind
he
of you
will
kind of
he
I
will
kind of
bitch and
expect
moan.
him. Yeah, and if I'm really honest with you, to come to Lewis's defense, which I don't do a lot of, but to come to his defense, if Leclerc moaned a little bit more like Lewis did, I think Ferrari would be better off because I think
That's the
Leclerc is just too
thing.
nice.
That's the thing that I am concerned about for Leclerc and his future is that even comparing the two Ferrari boys, you got Leclerc who just takes the pit wall as, whatever they say as the gospel
Mm,
truth. But you've got Sainz who will sit there and question every decision that they make, and if they're
mm,
being too invasive with his racecraft, he will tell them to shut up. Like
exactly.
harkening back to Silverstone, where he told them to stop intervening quite rudely over the radio.
Yeah.
So, or sorry, no, it wasn't Silverstone. It was Paul Ricard, the French Grand Prix.
Oh yes, yes, yes. But it's
Because
happened
they're
a few
both French.
times, and
Yeah,
it's happened a few times, and it is a worry for me because I feel like Leclerc is extremely quick,
yeah.
but
Leclerc
he's
needs a
he's
backbone.
he's just
That's
too
what he
nice,
needs.
exactly. I feel like it's one thing to be extremely quick, but if you want to be a champion, I mean, you know, people complain about Max's driving sometimes. Senna, Schumacher, Prost, um, even Hamilton when he was younger,
Lewis.
Alonso, they all had that aggression, they all had that backbone, they all had that I don't care attitude, like I'm going to take this corner whether you like it or not, get out of my way kind of attitude. Whereas
Yeah.
Leclerc is a bit more, he's just a little bit too nice, I feel.
Yeah, but I also
So
feel like when it
yeah.
comes to the team dynamic, he's a bit too nice. Like
Mm,
if the team make a call and he thinks it's a bad call because it is a bad call, he won't
mm,
say anything. He will just accept it and then he'll, obviously be frustrated later, like the hard tire debacle in Hungary, for example. He will just accept the call, not
mm.
contest it, and then rightfully be irate later.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or,
Well,
for
to be
example, Paul Ricard, look back at Paul Ricard, where, he was complaining lap after lap after lap, I have no rear grip, I have no rear grip, I'm losing the rear end. And then when he
mm,
finally did lose the rear end and careened into the wall, he went into the media pen afterwards and said it was all his fault, when in
yeah,
reality, Ferrari should have prioritized Leclerc's race and his need for new tires over Sainz. But they
yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Anyways, we're going off of this race. Let's get back onto this race. Yeah, it's so easy to get. Because the problem is, it's so easy to get caught up in these conversations because everything that happens today stems from the whole season. Everything that happens in the next race can come from the whole season. To be honest, Ferrari today were on top of it. I feel like
Yeah,
they did everything perfectly well. And if I'm really honest with you, even more so than Mercedes, I
you
feel
definitely. Yeah.
so if I'm really honest, having this conversation, yeah, it's fine. Um, we should probably get back onto the race review for this weekend, but having this conversation is probably not far off because everything that's happened during the year has stemmed to this conversation. Every race, how did Ferrari do? Not how did Leclerc do, how did Sainz do, how did Ferrari do? Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's what it goes down to. If Ferrari are on it, then there's a fight. I mean,
Yeah.
the most
Yeah, I mean
exciting part
Ferrari
of the
is
race
the
was
only
Leclerc behind
Ferrari.
chasing.
Yeah, no, Ferrari is the only one with a car capable of fighting those Red Bulls at that point. I mean, like on
Mm,
sheer on one lap pace, the Red Bulls aren't that fast. I mean, they're not.
mm.
But in terms of race pace, especially towards the latter half of this season, the race pace of the Red Bulls has been borderline overwhelming. Especially when
Yeah,
their drivers are on it, like Max at Spa or Checo today. He was just on it, you know? He wasn't
yeah.
putting a foot wrong, not a tire slip in sight. And when he drove well, the car performed well, and that race pace was shockingly good.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Especially when let's be honest here. I would say overall between Leclerc and Checo, Leclerc is the quicker driver.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Not to bash Checo or anything like that. He's a spectacular driver, and I would say his defending is better than Leclerc's. But everyone has their own strengths, and I would say that
mm,
part of the reason why Checo got that win today is because Leclerc is a bit uncertain, and he's fast, but he's obviously not as experienced, and he didn't
yeah,
know how to
it's
like
a
you
technical
mentioned
track.
earlier. He doesn't
One of the
have
most
that aggression to break
exactly
Perez's defense. So
agree.
eventually having to sit behind him for so long and not knowing where to put your nose in, eventually he made a mistake and Perez broke the DRS, and that was essentially the end of it.
Yeah, let's go into the next thing and who's your goat of the day? So I'll let you start.
Oh, I find that one to be kind of a tough one, considering, we had some quite strong drives today, but I would have to say one of the drives that impressed me, obviously Perez, his drive was spectacular.
Yeah,
I mean, he led every lap. I don't think
yeah,
there was a moment where he wasn't in control of this race. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I
I think
agree.
Lando did quite well.
There's not much I
Lando
can
did
say
very
to
well.
who?
Lando Norris did
Oh
quite
yes,
well
yes.
today.
I was quite impressed with Stroll. For somebody who gets a lot of stick, he has his moments in some races where he just he just drives. He does nothing exciting. He does nothing bad or anything. He just drives. And if the strategy works, if luck comes his way, he's there. And I
Yeah.
think, at the end of the day, that's sometimes all you need to do. And so good
Yeah,
on
I
him.
don't think
I'm
that
quite
quality
impressed.
doesn't make a champion, but it does mean that,
No,
if you play your strategy right, you can score a high position
100%.
or even a podium here and there.
I agree. It's certainly not the GOAT of the day, but I was quite impressed with him. I'm going to agree with you. I think Perez was definitely the GOAT of the day.
Definitely.
Not
One of
because
his best drives ever, to be honest.
I agree 100%. I agree. Okay, well, I guess we don't need to talk too much about it. I think most of the world will agree that he was the GOAT of the day.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
cool.
Although I
Let's go
will
on
say,
to,
just on a quick
yep.
tangent, I was still, despite the fact that it was kind of expected that Max would do well no matter what the race threw at him, I feel like, despite the fact that he made a few driver errors, I will say that the ability to, recover from those errors or recover from those unfortunate events was
Mm.
quite impressive. Not as impressive as Checo's drive, but I will say it was impressive to watch him, especially in those last 20 minutes to go past two cars in that very little time remaining.
It's impressive how quickly he closes up on guys in front of him.
Yeah, it's
It's
insane.
so unreal how quickly he closes up.
I mean, I was watching him when he was I think he was closing in on it was after he'd made the pit stop when he had the massive lockup, and he
Mm.
was I feel like
How's
I
that
think
spin, by the
I
way? How was that spin?
oh oh yeah, just right around.
Guy around him was
Ah,
kicked. He was just
yeah.
like Chuck, he pulled a Chuck
I
Norris.
I feel like he came out of the pits and he had like a massive, like fucking almost 10-second gap to Valtteri. And then I'm paying attention to the rest of the field. And then all of a sudden I look back and he's like right up Valtteri's gearbox. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
When did he do this?
it's mental, man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's
It's
crazy.
impressive to see how quickly he closes up.
Oh, I'm just
Um,
disappointed as a fan of his. I'm disappointed that, after yesterday's qualifying debacle that we couldn't have seen what he could have done if
I
he
mean, he
was.
could have won that race pretty easily if you think about it.
Yeah, I feel like if he started alongside Leclerc, I feel like we could have
Yeah.
seen another 1-2 for Red Bull, but that would have been kind of boring if I'm honest.
Sometimes boring is what we need, man. I mean,
Mm. Well,
some,
God knows that Red Bull don't need any more points.
no, that's true. Anyways, moving on. All right. Donkey of the day. Let's
Donkey of the day.
donkey
Latifi.
of the day. So,
Latifi.
mate, let, let's get our textbooks out here because I've got a few to write down here, mate. Like
Good Lord, there was
today
some
was there was some
tragic
real
driving.
shockers. There was
No,
some
no.
real shockers.
Actually, I have a slightly unconventional opinion here. I think the donkey of the day is whoever designed the bloody Renault engines. Like,
I will take
what?
that. I'll take that. I'll
You've
take that.
got
Both of them.
you've got Alonso, who is, holding Max behind, one of the most aggressive drivers of the decade, and he's just planted himself right in front of Max. And he's in the top 5, one of his best positions of the whole season, and then engine goes poof, gone.
Yeah, no.
And then,
I'll take
like
it.
a handful of laps later, Esteban Ocon, also out of the race, just gone.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I agree,
whoever
man. I'll
designed
take that.
Renault
If I'm really
engines.
honest, there's too many drivers to pick from, so I'll take that. You know,
Yeah, what did we have? 7
Renault engine,
DNFs?
Renault are the donkeys today. You know,
Yep.
there's no specific driver, just Renault.
Well,
We
I
just
mean, if you make me pick a driver, obviously Latifi. But, if
well,
we're talking overall, yeah, the Renault engineers, whatever the fuck
yeah.
they're doing at the factory, I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a bit of a boring answer from my end, but I do agree with both Perez being the goat and Renault being the donkey. I do also agree with Latifi. If I can just put a quick shot out there, I know he struggled a lot. If I'm really honest, a donkey of the day for me, which I won't say he was worse than like Latifi, for example, because at least he stayed in the race. And I'm going to get a lot of stick for this, but Russell, to me, mate, like I know he went through a lot. I know he stopped a lot, he had a lot of stuff, but he really struggled to get through a field with a superior car to most of what
Yeah.
was ahead of him. And you look at Max, for example. Max cut through that field, bro. Like
Yeah,
it's not like he struggled.
Max was just going down and then back up and then down and then back up the whole
I
race,
I
but George just
exactly. And George was struggling to pass the horse, the horses, and so on. And so
yeah.
I feel to me, you know, for somebody who's been a top 5 contender every single race this year, bar one where he got DNF'd, you know, I expected a little bit, you know, I expected him to do a Lewis. Lewis Hamilton, in my opinion, would have cut through the field from the back. It's just the type of driver he is. He always has done it
I mean,
before.
he did it last week.
Exactly,
When
exactly.
he did it last week at Monza, he started towards the back and
Yeah,
he cut through the field. I mean, not as quick as he would have done in last year's car, mind you, but
exactly. Yeah, true.
he
Yeah,
still managed to
but yeah,
cut through the field, follow Sainz right through the field. But yeah, George
yeah,
just couldn't
yeah.
couldn't
So
manage it today. I mean,
yeah,
he
that so,
finished
so
two
for
laps
me,
down.
exactly. So yeah,
Well, I mean,
to me, he's the donkey.
he did
He
the
did those extra quits, right? He did those extra
yeah
quits. He didn't need to,
yeah
but still, he did those extra quits because he was in that position.
yeah, and the contact with Magnussen and the puncture also
Yeah.
didn't help.
If he wasn't in that position, if he was able to cut through the field, he wouldn't be in the position where he needed to take those extra quits. So yeah,
No,
to me, I'm calling Russell my donkey of the day.
you're gonna
But I
get some hate for
definitely
that one.
that's too bad, mate. Let them come. Let them
uh,
come. Let them come.
Although on the topic
Anyways.
of cutting through the field, I feel like at some point Lando and Vettel probably felt like they were playing, Dutch whack-a-mole with, Max Verstappen. Just like they think, okay, he's gone now, I don't have to worry about it, and then they look over their other shoulder and it's like, oh, he's back again.
He's back. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Anyways, I think, Max was on a different one. The thing with Max is
he's been on it all season. I mean,
yeah.
he would have. I mean, I'm of the opinion that he would have had pole on Saturday if
He definitely would. Did you not see
that
Anthony did?
second lap he was cumulatively over a second faster than Charles.
Yeah, well, they showed the side by side, Charles
Yeah.
versus Max. Max was ahead the whole way, right until the end, and then he just pulled. He was up until he pulled into the pits. He was ahead.
Yeah, he would have if he had crossed that line. It would have been a pole time.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, he was on it, and it was just unfortunate that Red Bull made a rare miscalculation in their fuel levels.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to the big one. Obviously, yeah. So for those 3 people that actually get to watch this podcast, we just for their context, we are going to rank from 1 to 5. So basically, from 0 to 5. So basically, how the ranking will work. 0 means why did you bother pitching up? 1 means maybe you should just go home. 2 means you did okay, but there was just something that was missing. 3 is you just did your job. 4 is a great drive, and 5 is goat-like performance.
Yeah, so 3 is essentially your Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
You rock up, you do your job, and you go home.
pretty much, yeah. So let's run through the drivers. We don't need to
spend too much time on it. I think we've
we
spent
don't need to spend too much time
about individual driver performance.
Yeah, I think we when we need to speak about it, we can speak about it. But let's just run through it. I think we can maybe come to an agreement on points. When BT is with us, we just basically go on like a majority vote. So, for example, if I say 2 and you guys say 3 and BT says 3, then it will be a 3 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for today, let's just try and come to some agreement. Eventually, we pull the 3 people that watch this podcast in, and then they can vote too, and then we'll see how we compare to them. Anyways, let's start off with Max. I'm going to give Max, in my opinion, I'm just going to give him a 4.
Yeah.
I think he did do extra than normal. It wasn't a goat-like. It wasn't a goat-like experience, but it was definitely a solid, great drive.
Yeah, especially being able to come back up through the field was definitely impressive, but it wasn't that all-dominating drive that we've been seeing every now and again from him. Well, quite frequently from him this season.
Exactly. Okay, Perez, I'm going to give him a goat-like. I think that was the best race he's ever
5.
had. Charles, I'm going to give Charles, if I'm really honest with you, I want to give him a 4.
No, I would say 3. I don't really think he did anything special today. He started on pole, lost it immediately, and just sat behind Perez for the rest of the race.
But what more could he have done? I suppose we spoke about it earlier, right? He could have been more aggressive. I think.
While he had DRS, especially towards the end of the race, he could have been more aggressive, but he wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I agree with that. Let's go for a 3 there.
Yeah.
Sainz, I'm going to go with a 2. I think he did.
Yeah. I don't even know why he bothered showing up.
It's a difficult one to call here because two to our knowledge is you did okay, but something is missing. I mean, the guy came third. To give him a 2 is quite harsh.
Yes, he came third. You're right. But when you're racing 2 McLarens, third's not really that hard when you're in a Ferrari. Let's be real.
That's true. Lando was up his gearbox there.
Yeah.
Someone's fighting with McLarens shouldn't be.
So if you're in a Ferrari and you're fighting with McLarens, I don't know what you're doing, and you're not doing well.
That's true. All right, Russell.
Considering all of the misfortune he experienced, I would say a 3. Because
Uh,
not all of it was his fault. Like, there was a
if
few things where, like, for example, he shouldn't have even started there, considering how fast Lewis was during qualifying. But, you know, at the end of the day, not all of it was his fault. And, yeah, I can't really blame him for everything that went wrong. So I would say about a 3.
okay, I'm not gonna lie. I
I
was I
mean, he
was gonna
did pull fastest lap, so it's
um
not like he was sleeping. Like, it's not like he was asleep at the wheel like Sainz was. I mean, Sainz was, in my opinion, he had fallen asleep behind the wheel of that Ferrari.
yeah, that's fair. If I'm honest, I was gonna go for a 1.
A 1, really? You know, you got this Russell like hate
Just
boner
go
going
home,
on
mate.
here. Like,
Just go home, mate. Like, I don't know what you're doing today. This is not the Russell that I know. And it's the thing is he brings it upon himself, right? Because let's be honest, like we just by now we expect better.
yeah,
So
now you can't go,
yeah,
parading the title Mr. Consistency for the first half of the
yeah,
season and then
exactly. So
do
I'm
this.
gonna go in the middle. You said 3, I said 1, so I'm just gonna
We'll
say
give him
2.
a 2. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
give
let's
him a
give him a
2.
2. Hamilton, oof,
Oh,
a tough one. I'll give him the
I
3.
yeah, at best a 3. He really didn't do anything, and at some points it
He did
was
his job. He did what he
not
needed to
great.
do. A
Well,
3
no, I
is
mean
just
it's Lewis Hamilton. He's in him as the third best car on the grid. His job is to fight for a podium, but that didn't happen.
yeah, but okay. So then, should we give him a 2 because something was missing? I mean, he made
Yeah,
some mistakes, which is very
definitely had
unlike Hamilton. Like, yeah,
something, and especially given his prior performances of this track, something was missing for Hamilton today.
exactly. Okay, Ocon. Okay, so this is difficult. So with the guys that DNF'd, I think let's just how were they doing up until they got to their DNF?
Yeah, Ocon was not running in the points when he DNF'd.
He didn't seem to be doing too well. It was quite anonymous. Pretty much how he's been the whole year, to be fair.
Yeah, to be
He's
fair, he hasn't
yeah.
really had any
I'm
standouts.
gonna I'm gonna give him a 3.
Yeah,
When
I
is
would say he rocked
yeah.
up, he raced, but at the end of the day, the DNF wasn't his fault, so
The average score should be 3 because most drivers should just be doing their job,
yeah,
otherwise,
exactly.
so when somebody is like ungradable, like for example, if they DNF, then there's not much to grade. We just give them a 3.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm going to give him a 3 just purely because, you know, up until he got DNF'd,
Yeah,
he wasn't,
he didn't crash, he didn't make contact with
yeah,
anybody.
didn't do anything wrong. He
He
was doing the best he
drove.
could.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
just drove on a track that he's not very familiar with, if memory serves me correctly. So,
yeah. Okay, Alonso.
oh, I would have to say Alonso gets a 4 from me because
I like that. I was going to
he
say the
had
same.
he had planted that bloody car in
Parked.
front of Max, and he did
He
not
Jose
improve.
Mourinho. He Jose Mourinho that car and he parked that bus.
Yeah, yep, yeah.
Cool.
All aboard the Alonso train. Like,
100%, man.
if
100%.
if he
Okay.
hadn't DNF'd, I think that train would have gotten bigger. I think he would have picked up the Aston Martins as well.
That's
Oh no, I
true.
believe at the time the Aston Martins were ahead. One of them was ahead of him. I believe Stroll was ahead of him at the time, but he definitely would have picked up the Alpha Tauris at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, he did well. I enjoyed
Yeah, he
watching
did
him
well.
defend
It's just
from
a
from
shame,
from Max.
yeah, it's just a shame that he DNF'd out of such a good race result. And
I
like I said,
agree.
donkey of the day,
Donkey of the
Renault
day, Renault.
Engineering. Yeah,
All right, let's move on to the McLaren boys.
yeah. Oh,
Norris, I'm going to give Norris a 4.
yeah, I think Norris and Daniel deserve a 4, both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they were right, and they were by each other, and the only reason that there was such a big gap between the two of them at the end of the race was because Daniel's softs just fell off a cliff eventually, as soft tires tend to do.
Yeah, that's true. I agree
Because
with
he put
that.
them
We'll,
on,
we'll go with that.
he put those soft tires on way early, and he stayed on them to the end of the race. So
He did quite well with them, to be fair,
Yeah,
especially to hold them until the end. So I
he
mean,
deserves a 4 in my mind.
Perez is usually the tire king, but the tire whisperer. But we'll give it to Daniel today.
Yeah.
Okay, Bottas. He was anonymous. I didn't see him.
Bottas, yeah, he finished 11th, just ahead of the Haas of Kevin Magnussen.
I'm gonna give him a
So-
3 because I mean it's an Alpha Romeo. It's not like he's supposed to be, scoring crazy points, but he just didn't seem to. I mean, I can't say anything was missing. He was racing. He was doing his race. Nothing really missing there. So 3, he did his job.
Yeah, he just did his job,
Zhou Guanyu, I'll give him a 3 up until the point that Latifi took him out. He was
Yeah, like
pretty
he was
good.
just racing his race, and then Latifi decided to, deck him into a wall.
I didn't see him apparently.
Yeah, no, fucking.
Anyway.
Although, if I had to rate his helmet, I'm giving him a fucking 0. And that thing was ugly.
Fair enough. Gasly,
Oh, Gasly.
also very anonymous today as well.
Yeah, didn't really do much.
Um,
Well, I mean, he finished. He scored a point, so
I'll give him a 3.
yeah. I mean, he's in that AlphaTauri. He's not the best. Well, yeah, he's a back marker, but
There was 6 DNF cars, so
yeah. And so
I mean, there should have been a point up for grabs to fight for.
yeah, yeah.
Sonoda,
Sonoda
also binned it.
Yeah, no, Sonoda has binned it out of driver errors, so I'm gonna have to give him like a 2.
Okay, I'll agree with that. That's fine.
Because I don't
Magnussen,
think he was driving pretty quick before he decked it into the wall, so I'm not gonna give him a 1, but there was something missing and he ended up putting it in the wall, so
yeah, I think 2 is fair. I think 1's a bit harsh. I think he was doing okay up until then.
yeah. So I'd say 2, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised Toto hasn't blamed Hannah Schmidt for Sonoda. I mean, I'm just saying it's just. Anyways, moving on. Magnus.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't want to bash Magnussen too much.
How many front wings has this guy had to replace in this season?
And okay, like, look, half of it's like most of it's not even his fault.
Don't know, man. I think the guy's a bit of a rocket ship. I like him, by the way.
No. I mean, you look like he's had this same thing happen to him 3 times now, right? Where somebody, he has a collision in lap 1 and has to change his front wing. It happened in Spain, it happened at Canada, and it happened again today, and probably 1 or 2 other times that I'm not remembering. But it's not. Like, a lot of them, and the FIA agrees with me, because they're all deemed as racing incidents. So they're not necessarily his fault. I mean, I didn't see him, in my view, he didn't put the nose in the wrong place for it to be broken today. I feel like it was just an unfortunate racing incident.
Fair enough. Okay, so what are we giving him?
Oh, I would say just the 3. I mean, he didn't really do anything wrong, but he didn't really do anything spectacular.
Yeah, I didn't see much of him. I think a 3 is okay.
There wasn't really much to say. He just sat behind the wheel and drove the car.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Mick.
Yeah, Mick's an interesting one because he, I would say Mick. If I'd give him an overall rating of the season, the whole season, I would say just a 2. The whole season. Like, he's had moments of being really good, but there's something missing in his drive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
And it's
so are we gonna go 2 for this race as well?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna give him a 2 from my side.
Pretty much every race except for Silverstone and Austria, he's been racing at a 2.
Yeah, I agree. All right. The 2 Aston Martin boys. Now, I'm gonna go. If I'm honest, I'm gonna go 4 for both of them.
100%.
I think even Lance, I think, just being there and just driving properly and just not causing nonsense and just being there, I think gave them good points today.
Yeah. Now,
So I think that
I
really, really
would
good
I
drives from
would
both of them.
I would actually. I mean, we don't deal in half points, but in my opinion, I would say Seb probably got a 4.5 because he was, he not only was he was keeping at one point Max and Lewis behind him for quite a while
Mm.
in a
Yeah,
car that is relatively like, when you compare the Merc and especially the Red Bull to the Aston Martin, it's like
just
comparing
say it,
a
man. You can say it.
Ferrari
Be honest, man. Just say it.
sports car to a
It's
fucking kiddies
it's terrible,
tractor.
mate.
Yeah,
It's
that's
exactly. Just say it. It's
garbage.
terrible.
Yeah.
It is.
So
I like the tractor.
yeah, if you can keep a Ferrari sports car behind you in a bloody like kiddies walk along fucking car, then you're doing something right.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's do fours for them both. And then the
Yeah.
last two, Albon, Latifi. We're giving Latifi a 5, eh?
Yeah. Go TP. He gets a
Go
5 for
Latifi.
me.
Sure, for sure.
Honestly.
Okay, I'm
No,
giving
but
Latifi a
really,
0.
fucking
Like,
0. Yeah,
don't know why he even
fuck
came.
me.
He should have just stayed in the hotel.
I don't even know why he's allowed to come. I don't know why he hasn't been banned from the fucking paddock at this point.
I agree.
Like,
Albon,
holy shit. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Albon's a tough one as well. Also very anonymous.
Yeah.
Before he got DNF'd, I also didn't really see.
I don't even
Say
know
again?
what DNF from.
Um,
Why did he DNF?
I think.
Oh, wait, no. He was going in, he was complaining about his brakes all session long. And then at one point he went for a corner, hit the apex, the car just didn't turn.
Oh yes.
And then he went into the wall, front wing came off, and then he limped back to the pits. And at that
Mm,
point, it was the same thing that happened with Latifi as well. Like the car had what seemed like a fixable issue, and then they had to just cut it at the pit.
yeah.
So
What should we
I'd
do?
be
Are
very
we?
curious to find out what the fuck happened to the two Williams this week because both of them seem like Latifi managed to get back to the pits with nothing but a puncture,
Mm,
and Albon managed to get back. They put a new set of tires on his car. They changed his front wing, and then
yeah.
the man at the back with the jack just started going like that, and they turned off the car.
Yeah. I
So
don't
I'm
know.
wondering,
I don't know. I
how
think
much damage
Williams.
do you do by slowly careening into a wall? Like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
are they starting to make the car parts of the Williams out of paper mache? Like, are they that broke? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I don't know. They. I don't know. It's difficult to. Um.
It's difficult to say, but it's very questionable.
Yeah. It is. But yeah. I'm gonna give him a 3. I think it was a slightly ungradable
Was, yeah,
for Albon.
very
So
ungradable performance in my opinion.
but I do tend to agree. I'm not sure, what Williams are doing, but something is just not working there.
Yeah,
Hasn't been for a few years, but it is like we said at the beginning. We can have a whole podcast on Williams. It's just
yeah, we could do a
it's like
whole you could do a whole special on Williams of their whole history, like
yeah. All
going
right.
from a dominant team to a shitbox.
Yeah, fair enough. Steiner's words.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on. So let's just close off on predictions. So I'm going to be scoring predictions as well. So basically, what we will do with predictions is for every one you get right, it's 2 points. And for every one where you one off, it's 1 point. So if you say Leclerc's first, but he came second, you get 1 point. But if you say he's first and he came first, you get 2 points.
Fair enough. I don't remember what my predictions were, to be honest.
You said Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Max, Alonso.
Yeah,
Um,
so I was somewhat off.
so you got 1 point for Leclerc because
Yeah,
you were one off. You
yeah,
got 1 point for Sainz because you were
yep.
one off.
Wait, no, I
No,
said
you get
Sainz would come third,
two.
so I got 2
Sorry,
points. Yeah,
2 points.
yeah,
So you got 3 points, and then yeah, the rest no.
yeah. I really
Basically,
thought Alonso was gonna do better.
Yeah, I basically got 2 points. I said Leclerc first, which he came second, so I get one there. And I said Sainz fourth, which he came third, so I'll get one there. So you got three, I got two.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see the Alonso DNF coming, so
Yeah,
yeah, and I thought that Max would have done better, but nah, well, he can't be on it all the time, and I don't know
that's
what the
true.
hell happened to Lewis.
That's
Like
true.
from his qualifying pace, I thought, oh, fucking Lewis is gonna be right up there on the podium, and then he wasn't. So
Yeah,
I
look,
don't know what happened to him, but
this race was quite an unpredictable one. A lot of things went down here. So to be fair, I don't think much was easy to call here.
yeah,
But
no,
you know,
definitely not.
over a season, you'll probably find that your predictions become sometimes interesting, sometimes quite predictable. We'll see, we'll see. But
Yeah,
for
I'm
now,
predicting a Max win for next week. Yeah, I'm not being hopeful or anything.
fair enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post our predictions on Instagram.
Oh,
So what I'll do is I think we won't talk about our predictions now. I think we'll go through practice first, or even quali, and after
yeah,
qualifying we make after each quali session we make our predictions. I will post those predictions. If people want to go see, they can go see our predictions on Instagram. I'll link all the stuff down below. Um, and if they want to go see our predictions there after quali, then after quali I'll post all of our predictions on Instagram, and then we'll score it at the end of the race in the next podcast. So go check it. Go check in the links below for our Instagram account, and we will put our predictions there on a Saturday after quali. Um, cool. Let's close it off.
yeah.
I
Well,
think we've
let's close on the fact that mathematically speaking, unless Leclerc comes second next week, if Max wins, the championship's over.
yeah.
Yeah, we could be looking at the end of the 2022 championship for next week.
That is true. So is that basically your race week takeaway? So next week we're going to be pretty
Next
much
week's the
finishing.
championship decider.
It will be great for Red Bull if you think about it, because it's pretty
Yeah.
much you can call it a home race in a way
Yeah, no, definitely. But
for
yeah, I
Honda,
mean,
so
I think one
not
of the
too bad.
main, other than the fact that Perez has still very much got the talent to race in Red Bull, I would say that the other thing to take away from it is, with these results, it pretty much, especially with Checo's win and taking those points away from Leclerc, um,
Mm,
if Leclerc doesn't come second or first next week, and Max wins, the championship's over. And, people might say,
yeah,
oh, well, that's if Max wins, but I think if his record this season has shown anything, is that Max winning is not a very unlikely outcome.
that's true. That's true. And it's not a bad takeaway, because the chances were he could have won this weekend, but
Oh, he
obviously
could have. I mean, the
Leclerc would have had
chances
to
of
come
winning,
eighth or something.
yeah, the Leclerc and Perez would have both had to finish essentially outside of the points in order for him to win.
Yeah. So we'll leave it to Japan, and hopefully he closes it off. I mean, it does make for a boring rest of the year in that way. But it would be nice to see him get his championship without the noise about how he stole it from Hamilton.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a story for another day.
Oh, that's a
Um,
story we're not going to touch with a 10-foot pole.
no, 100%. I want to stay away from that. So cool, man. So great first episode, and I hope you guys
Technical
that
difficulties
watched.
aside.
Yeah, I'll cut some of it out. But I hope that you guys watching enjoyed what we have to offer. Obviously, we'll be doing this every week after every race and so on. So hopefully we get better at this. Um, but cool, guys. Thanks for joining, and Egan, thanks for the chat. And
Yeah.
we'll keep this going and carry on next week. Cheers,
Yeah.
guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.